What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review. The 19th of May was definitely loaded with releases we wanted to get to, and another one that was definitely on our radar. And I kind of forgot just because, well, they're not on Metal Blade anymore, and I'm kind of confused by that. Was the latest offering from The Ocean, or The Ocean Collective. I guess that's what they're going by now. Holocene. This again comes out on the 19th of May on Pelagic Records. Again, they were on Metal Blade. They might have a distribution deal with them. I don't know. It's just kind of weird not seeing Metal Blade on there because they've been on there for quite a while now. This band formed in 2000 in Berlin, Germany. This is their 11th full-length overall. We've been over them at least once in here, but we've been longtime fans. I'm a huge fan of Pelagial and Phanerozoic Part 1, which I think is possibly one of my favorite post-metal, post-prog metal albums. It's really hard to describe this band because they're kind of a blend of different styles. Like, post-metal is definitely a big part of it. Sludge metal was more early on, but it's still kind of a seasoning in there. And progressive metal, for damn sure, because these guys kind of write very lavish, intricate songs that are very much in the vein of a ton of different kinds of prog bands, but again, with that sort of post-metal atmosphere. It kind of all runs together. They've been compared to a number of bands, Catatonia, even Tool. I think I brought up Tool in the last one and said the drumming was similar, and some rabid fucking Tool fan bit my head off because how dare I compare a mere mortal to fucking Tool? Oh my god, that fan base is fucking toxic as fuck, but anyway.
The nerve of you comparing Paul Seidel to Danny Carey, just where do you get off?
They're both good drummers!
I agree.
Now this band, one of the things that I have always been fascinated with is their thing with biology. This time we are in the Holocene era, which is the current era. It actually makes up the last 11,700 years, so this is the current biological era, and we've gone over the Mesozoic, we've gone over, you know, the primordial, we've kind of gone over all of it, and I was kind of interested to see what they would do for the current era, and I'll be honest, this is probably the most different album they have put out yet. This is probably the most chill album they've put out yet, if I'm going to be honest.
It's very relaxing, very hypnotic, more similar to, and it's odd that I'm going to say this, but more similar to like chill wave and trip hop. It's not what you're thinking it is in terms of an Ocean record.
It still has a lot of the familiarities, like there's still like good heavy sections on here, bottom heavy chuggy guitars, lots of atmosphere, you know, the post-metal song dynamics, but a big part of this, and probably a bigger part than it's ever been, are more electronics. Synths have always been kind of a thing they've been really working in with each album, but here it's not just like synths in terms of like layering the background, the music, and adding atmosphere. It's synths as like a prominent focus on a good chunk of this, to the point where some songs kind of have like more of a Depeche Mode or Massive Attack sort of vibe, and at their heaviest, it's kind of like, you know, Anathema or, you know, Catatonia and stuff like that. Maybe even Nine Inch Nails.
A little bit. And sometimes like a little bit of like Cave-In / Rust in Circles.
The first two tracks are probably a really good example of this stylistic shift, but also including, you know, familiar elements. They both open with more synths, like, you know, pulsating synths in the background. They're contributing more to the melody, and the guitars are almost sort of secondary, like they're more of an atmospheric thing. And again, you have real drums mixed with, you know, electronic drums, and with the production, there's a lot of cool tricks with the drums too. Like you have sections where they kind of muffle them and put them in the background.
Yeah, like even the first track, even Pre-Boreal, there's not really even a lot of drums. Most of the rhythmic patterns are done by synths. Yeah,
and honestly, a big contributor to the rhythmic patterns are the vocals. With all this open space without like a ton of heavy material around him, the frontman, whose name I couldn't pronounce anyway, I'll be honest, I'd butcher it, but he's been with the band since, I believe, Heliocentric, and he's an awesome singer. He has a lot more room to do more vocal patterns, and he's got this really cool voice anyway. It's like very croony, but kind of raspy and gruff, and it's the vocal patterns themselves that really add a lot. Like the song Boreal, his vocal pattern is almost like a tribal drum beat. And since the drums are a little bit more muffled because it's just, you know, sort of a electronic beat behind it, it's, you know, very simple. It's very, I don't know, kind of like shake your ass kind of music. Like it really is. But he adds like a layer to it where it kind of gives it almost like a tribal percussion. Like there's a little bit of like, synthesized drums that are kind of tribal behind it, but his vocal layer adds a lot to it. And both of these opening 2 tracks eventually give way to heavier sections. And that's definitely a theme on here where there's a lot of slow building, which that's, a post-metal thing anyway.
Yeah.
But a lot of them start off very soft and then get to the heavy.
Sea of Reeds kind of actually does the same thing, although I really like the 80s sci-fi start to it. But throughout that song, it doesn't really get more musical until the end. And a lot of these songs have that, where the first half of the song easily is just synth. And it's not bad. I think it's done really well. But it has a really slow start, and then it gets to like this part with these angelic synths, and then it has this relaxed drum groove. But it's not what you're thinking for the ocean. You're thinking like eventually it's going to build into something heavier. It built into something more relaxed.
This song in particular is really interesting because a lot of post metal is building up and releasing tension and like big crescendos at the end. And there's definitely a lot of that. This one is more subdued, and it stays kind of subdued and relaxed throughout. There are moments where you feel like it's building to like a fever pitch, but it sort of releases the tension in like a calm exhale rather than like a violent shout. And it's kind of an interesting dynamic to play with, but there are songs there that absolutely explode. And I would say in terms of like the body of their work, this album has some of the sharpest transitions in terms of like going from soft to heavy. Songs like Subboreal, Unconformities, and Parabiosis both have just, kind of out of nowhere build-ups to like just instantly heavy. Like it's not like, the integral steps to it like a lot of post-metal builds. Like it just explodes, especially on Unconformities, which is kind of an odd track. They have a guest vocalist, Karen Park, who is a Swedish-Norwegian, I think she was described as indie electronica, I think is the
kind of sounds like Gwen Stefani, but like in the roaring 20s.
Yeah, it's very fluttery. Like she's almost kind of like a female Tom York in a way, which I'll be honest, there's a good chunk of this that reminds me of Radiohead, especially around like OK Computer and probably Kid A. But this song has a very strange build. Like after she does these really, kind of lush, haunting vocals, you get a section where the frontman starts repeating a phrase. I think it's like, don't dim the lights or turn the lights on or something like that. Yep. It's a refrain, and then it just explodes into this like converge like shit fit out of nowhere and kind of builds back down and then comes back up again. And generally, again, like the Ocean's pace is very deliberate. Like that's almost kind of a thing you pick up on every album. These feel more sharp, and just because the dynamic shifts are so big. Like, again, a lot of this stuff is very soft and subdued and kind of calming in a way. And then you get these big shifts to like something super heavy, like especially on Subboreal too. That one starts off almost like an electronic pop song, like kind of like 80s pop. Again, the Depeche Mode vibe on it is very real. I mean, I've been jamming the new Depeche Mode album, and like, yeah, that sounds very familiar. Even the vocal phrasing is kind of poppy. Like it's got a good hook to it, and then kind of out of nowhere it builds up into like a big gnarly rocker with some seriously heavy riffs to it,
with a double kick off time groove, because what Ocean record would be complete without at least one?
Yeah.
But even after Subboreal, the last say 3 tracks, Unconformities, Parabiosis, and Subatlantic, all kind of do that. They all kind of start with this really, I think it's hypnotic. These bassy synths that they use, first of all, sound great on good speakers. I've heard them on multiple good speakers now.
The production's excellent.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's pretty killer.
If you listen to any Ocean album, they are generally really good at production.
But they all kind of do this again in the second half of the songs. They all kind of incorporate finally some heavy moments, because really guitars are absent from a lot of this.
Yeah, if anything, they're kind of just like in the background, like fluttering melodies, like some dissonant stuff in the background. It's more about the ambiance and the mood, and again, like sort of this restrained vibe, and it works. I like it. But at the same time, there aren't a lot of things that really remind me of like the Ocean in general.
Right.
Like, those softer moments are on like all of their works, but I think here it has become like the dominant thing, whereas like all the heavy post-metal, sludge metal riffs are kind of minimalized. And I'll be honest, I miss them, which kind of leads me to like some issues with this album. Like I enjoy it. Like it's a very different album. Honestly, the best way I can explain it is I would listen to this Ocean album versus others for completely different reasons. Like this has a vibe that really is not found on any of their other albums, and it's unique. It's kind of cool how they kind of weave in again this sort of like Kid A sort of like alternative electronic sound with their sound, but I think they kind of cut off a bit of their main sound. Like honestly, the song that really reminds me of the Ocean flat out, like start to finish, is Subatlantic. You know, it starts off a little bit softer, but it's more dark and sinister. There's some Middle Eastern rhythms to it. But when it builds up, like it builds up to really heavy sections.
Sludgy, doomy melodies.
There's even like a kind of genty breakdown on it. Like there's not a lot of like huge polyrhythms on here. Like there's definitely some, but they're done, again, more in that subdued manner. It's not like, you know, a big syncopated chug or anything like that with like some cool like lavish synths behind it. Like that's kind of what I expect from the Ocean. But this is also one of the few moments where the harsh vocals come in. Like they're kind of spotty on here. In fact, I would say this album has fewer harsh vocals than any other Ocean album as well. And when they do come in, generally they're layered with clean vocals. So now it's kind of like a multi-layered thing versus having just like a big section of harsh vocals. I think the only section of flat out harsh vocals are on Unconformities when you get that converged like freak out. The rest of the time it's like a layered effect, which they've definitely done before, but they've also been good about isolating different vocals. The cleans in here are often isolated and they're really done well, and I think that kind of fits more with the vibe of this album, but I do miss, again, some of the elements that have been very familiar to me over the years of the Ocean. Overall, I really do enjoy this. Again, not what I expected, but it was still really good. It's just, I'm still a little taken back by it, and I will admit I'm gonna listen to it more. Like I've had 2 really good run-throughs on this, you know, rewound tracks, came back to them, and I'm at a 3.5. I like this. I think it's really good. Again, it's one of those albums where, you know, if I'm thinking of the Ocean in terms of like, yeah, I want to listen to the Ocean, this isn't the first one I would think of, but if I wanted something far more chill and relaxing, and again, you know, just more subdued and subtle versus, you know, like more bombastic in terms of parts, this is the one I would come to. It flows seamlessly, like track to track. I think the synths are excellent in terms of transition.
Oh, 100%.
And production-wise, this album sounds beautiful as ever. These guys really know how to do this. It has great heavy parts on it, but I think that part has been maybe minimized a little bit too much, because I would say like this is like a 60-40 split, maybe 65-35 in terms of...
Maybe 70-30.
Maybe 70-30.
There's
I don't
not
know.
a lot of heavy.
This is, again, a very different album, and, you know, this is for more of the chill moments and then, like, surprise heaviness. All of it, though, I think is executed really well, and in terms of vocal performances, I think this is the vocalist's big standout moment. Again, with all this open space to sing in, you really get to hear a lot of, like, his range, his different cadences, and, you know, lyrically, once again, they kind of interweave the whole themes of, like, you know, biology and the human condition and such, and it's, you know, very cerebral and very smart, and I like it. I just kind of miss some of the older elements, and I mean, they set some high benchmarks for me in the past, but I strongly recommend this. If you're a big fan of, like, you know, Cult of Luna and Catatonia, and I will even say Depeche Mode on this one. If you're a fan of Depeche Mode, you might really dig it. If you like your Depeche Mode proggy, which that's not really Depeche Mode, give it a fucking whirl. It's good.
I personally am going to give it a 4. This is the 5th time today I've listened to this record. I've actually had a bunch of time today to really kind of let it set in. And the first time I jammed this was last night on my way home from doing reviews here. And let me tell you this, it is a great nighttime driving record, especially if you've got really good speakers in your car. Like, this record is amazing for that. I like the kind of overall hypnotic nature of this record, because as much as I like heavy death metal and screaming and drums and crazy riffs all the time, I also like really subdued, relaxed music. My girlfriend actually someone recently introduced me to Thievery Corporation, which this also kind of falls in line with, oddly enough. Just chill wave, trip hop music. I like what they do with the synths. In fact, I like the fact that the synths are often more percussive than the actual drumming. Really sets the stage for some atypical Ocean. There are some heavy parts in here, but they are not the dominant force behind this album. Most of it is really subdued and relaxed, and I kind of like that. I think that every song has a great build to it, even if it doesn't necessarily pay off to something heavy and jamming. The jams that they do have are great. The vocals are amazing. I also like that the vocals are sometimes used as a percussive instrument. The vocal cadences in here and the play back and forth for when you do get little different heavy moments is often capped off by really awesome vocals. I don't really have too many negatives, although I will fall in line a little bit with Nick and say that I do miss some of the heavier moments of the Ocean, because that's what made me fall in love with this band in the first place.
It's the balance.
It is. But in true prog nature, you're supposed to progress into something different. That's how prog works. And I think that this little batch of experimentation for these guys, with as good as they are implementing things like synths and great lush atmosphere anyway, this is a good move for them, at least. It is vastly different from anything Ocean has ever put out. Vastly different from all of it. But I really dig it. And on my 5th listen, I can guarantee there will probably be a 6th listen. If you are a fan of things like Catatonia or Russian Circles or Cave In or Massive Attack or Nine Inch Nails, you're probably actually really gonna dig this fucking record quite a bit. Definitely go out and give it a listen, form your own opinion, but as for my opinion, I think it's a 4.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there, as well as our store, which we are currently working on designs for new shirts and all sorts of other stuff. They'll probably still say no to grenades, but I still want them.
We may be able to pull off a grenade. If you want a Thralls of Metal grenade, I think that's a terrible idea in this day and age, but what do I know? Also, something neat going on. We are in the midst of a giveaway for 15,000 subscribers.
We're giving away 15,000 subscribers. You will all be enslaved.
Ha ha! No, Nick has a stack of 10 CDs that he is going to give away to one of our lucky viewers. All you have to do is go down to the video that is actually playing on our channel when you first open it. It's also linked down below. Go down there and simply just leave a comment. And then once we hit 15,000 subs, which, let me tell you, is not too fucking far off, we will select one lucky winner to take home those 10 CDs. For 15,000 subs, I can't believe we're here.
Yeah, it's been an insane journey, and I've been grateful for every step. Never thought we'd get here.
Nope.
But here we are, still talking about metal, still enjoying it, and still enjoying doing this, because, I mean, it's mostly you guys. You guys fucking rule. It's awesome talking to you guys in the comments, running it at shows, all that shit. It's been a fun ride, and we're going to stay on it because it's awesome. So, yeah, thank you guys once again, and we will catch you later.